So I'm gonna ask a few questions, and then again, we're gonna have people come up to the mics to ask more specific or personal questions. But I've got a question for you. You know those tests, like what color is your parachute, or all of those things. I mean, I just remember filling that out, and I said like, I like journalism and I like gardening, and it was like, you should report on gardening. You know what I mean? Is it that, like, I felt like, oh, this is too simplistic. Do you find that these tests work? Is there a way that we can make them work better for us? Are they worth investing in?
I think they do work for people who are really unclear, or maybe don't have the confidence to step into what they really want to be doing. So I think that most of us have an idea, an inclination of what it is we want to do, but we're doing what our parents think we should do, or our spouses, or what we've always done. So one good thing about these tests is you can then say, well, look on this paper, I'm supposed to be.
Validates it.
Yeah, and then that way you can, have more confidence to step into it, and it starts aligning what your strengths really are.
I guess I agree with all of that, and I would add that that the reason that I steer away from some of them, and I tend to use more attitudinal assessments, is that the job that you may want, or the job that's the thing that you're ultimately going to do, may not have been invented yet. And I think that, to be told that you'd be perfect to be a watch repairman, or, that it puts you into a box. And I think that these days, taking a more quantum approach to our careers is useful. Maybe it's having one of those tests is never going to tell you that you'd be perfect for a portfolio lifestyle where you're doing a lot of different things. And having multiple streams of revenue.
That's a very good point. So what is the first question that you ask a client when you sit down with them? Do you get them to take that test, or is there something that sort of launches where you decide to go with them in terms of how to pursue what their next step is?
I personally don't use any tests. So what it is, it's about them and doing a diagnostic with them. And through a series of questions, it could take an hour and a half of sitting down and exploring, what these passion, we keep going back to that word passion, I hope it's okay, but it's true. It's like, what is it? What is your passion? And you ask questions, diagnostic questions that really dig deep into who that person is. And I think that gives you a lot more content to use in direction. But I don't think that anybody can also decide what new path they want to take without actually getting out there and exploring it and experimenting. So I spoke of dog walking earlier because I know of a woman who was a hedge fund manager and was in the market to transition her career, and she actually is a dog walker right now. It's not something that would have ever come up in a test. It's not something that she would have known she would actually like unless she got out there and tried it. So what she did was she did some experimentation, and she started it, and she started talking about it, and when you talk about it with people, then you also get a feeling of a reaction. So you either feel good talking about a new career, or you don't feel good, and these are all things that play into whether this is something that I'm going to pursue. So you're not going to quit one day and then say, oh, I'm going to change my career and do something entirely different without experimenting, without exploring, and without answering, these questions and starting, it could take a long time. It might not happen immediately.
We had a question earlier about specifically online, what tools you feel that your clients need to be using in terms of getting out their name, their brand, their image, those kinds of things.
My experience is, first of all, online really works best when you approach it strategically. So kind of know what it is that you're looking for, and also determine how much time you're going to spend, or else you really can kind of go into the black hole. I am a fan of LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Oh, by the way, my Twitter name is Bueller Cohen. Bueller is my dog. And
do you feel like those are absolute necessities? Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, those three, you gotta hit all three of them?
I don't want to make a hard and fast rule. It's kind of what works for you, but I do think LinkedIn in particular and Facebook are really effective tools. I think with LinkedIn, and maybe it's been said in other panels, but it's not about the person that you've met, that's good for LinkedIn, it's the 1,000 people that they don't know who you don't know yet.
Right.
So rarely is it going to be that person that's going to hire you, but it's somebody that they know. And so I think it's really important, like, to actually, after you accept somebody on LinkedIn, look at who their friends are, see who you have in common.
Yeah.
If you both like the same person, that's fantastic. If you both hate the same person, that certainly gives you good things
Work
to
in
talk
your favor
about.
as
but,
well,
you know.
yes. Now, Tonia, you mentioned you said it's very important that people are consistent in terms of interactive branding. I think, a lot of people came to Facebook when they were getting in touch with their friends or their family and then are realizing actually this has become a professional tool. How do you manage your personal and your private image online?
I go back to professionalism and how you want to brand yourself. And if that is professional, then keep everything consistent. And I don't mean to go against, Alan's Twitter, but I would probably keep it consistent with whatever brand it is that you're about. So if it's your company name or your website, whatever it is just keep the consistency, because people then will link your Twitter to your Facebook to your LinkedIn, and also to be your image is also very important to be consistent as well. But even when I'm going, out socially, I'm trying always to be consistent with my brand, because that's how I want to, portray myself and working with other people. And so I think it's important.
Okay, before we turn it over to the audience, I just want to also ask you, there's a lot of time spent when you don't have a job or you're not sure what your next move is. There's a lot of time. What should you be doing?
Just to follow up on in terms of branding, when you're in between jobs, it's also a great opportunity to continue to express your brand, to really look for whether it's volunteer opportunities, speaking engagements, board affiliations, whatever it is, writing, blogging, just really to sharpen your brand and get it out there. Stay out there.
So let's turn it over to the audience. We've got 2 mics, one over here, one over there. Somebody's making, please, would you mind stepping to the microphone? Here we go.
Hi there.
Please,
thanks.
of course, introduce yourself again if you don't mind.
Harold Itzkowitz. Thanks for the good advice. I have 2 questions for you. One is about your advice to follow your interests, or to put it another way, follow your bliss. Isn't that kind of tough if you're putting it in the context of making a career change? Isn't it rather tough to do that in this economy where somebody's going to take a look at your resume and say, well, you have 15, 20 years experience doing X and now you want to do Y. I've got 5,000 resumes from people doing Y. Why should I take you? The other part, which, forgive me, I don't think you've touched on, is what do you do about somebody like me who's 53 years old, 25 years of experience, and keep hearing overqualified?
Okay, so let's start with the first question, which is for somebody who wants to make a radical change, how do they go about starting on that if they have already had a previous professional career?
All right. So that.
I don't know the answer to the question, so.
Thanks. So that's a great question. I think, first of all, I don't think anyone would ever suggest that you should, if you have a job, that you should just willy-nilly just jump without a parachute and open up that, that boutique or whatever. But if it's, I think it's still useful to think about your career in terms of both short-term and long-term objectives. So, well, first of all, look at your finances. Yeah, look at what your nut is. What do you absolutely have to make? That's not, a lot of people don't talk to financial planners when they're in this position, and I think it's a good place to do that. And then to really think about, maybe you feel that you need to stay exactly on that career path, but maybe you can begin to start developing some other skills or interests, maybe taking on some part-time work, beginning to sort of put that longer-term plan in play.
I have an interesting anecdote that reminds me. Last year, Chris Anderson spoke at the Media Bistro Circus. And you think, oh, well, Chris Anderson's got it all figured out, right? I mean, he's the editor-in-chief of Wired and has these best-selling books. But what he did in his spare time was so weird and interesting. He developed a blog about Caterpillar, not the animals, but the machines. And nobody else had one. And he really has weirdly become like an expert about those Caterpillar machines, which my 2-year-old is totally like gaga over. Anyway, so now he's sort of launched himself, if he ever wanted to, become a big machinery expert. I don't know. Who knows what's out there? That's not my field. But I'm just saying that like there are ways of exploring things that pique your interest, and especially if you can create a presence online about it, that can brand you as an expert on it, oddly. I felt like that was so cool that he did that. Yeah, so the second question was, if you are in a second part of your career and you are getting overqualified as the response from potential employers, how do you fight back against that?
You know, I did read a book on the topic, and I'm happy to share the link with you. But one of the things that it said, and maybe this is your experience or not, is that employers, you know, who have some of that age prejudice, that they have certain limiting beliefs about what people over the age of 50 can or can't do. Like, you know, that you're gonna need to take naps after lunch, and that you're gonna be a know-it-all, and that you're not gonna be open to learning new things and all that. So I'm not saying that this is your situation, but if you're beginning to see a pattern in that, you might want to look at sort of how you interview and see how you maybe are addressing some of those hidden objections. Because usually there's some sort of assumption or limiting belief at play on the part of the hiring manager.
Isn't there also the idea that, sorry, I don't mean to take up so much time, but isn't there also the idea that you're going to be too costly?
Well, I think that goes back to examining your finances, and if you've decided that it is time to take a job that you are indeed overqualified for, that has to be, you know, explain to the person, this is not about my paycheck, this is about working for a company that I believe in, spinning it in a way that makes them realize, ooh, having this person on board with all this experience for maybe a little bit less than you normally would have taken, that can be a positive thing.
Thanks very much.
It's the Jedi mind trick. Tell them what they should believe. Do you know what I mean?